Welcome back to the Grindhouse podcast. My name is not Cheesefilm. He's over here.
Yeah, I'm Cheesefilm. I don't want this to be like the Costco verse, so you don't have to have a...
I don't have a name yet.
Yeah.
Maybe sometime we'll figure something out.
You know where Cheesefilm came from? Like why I go by Cheesefilm?
Your TikTok name.
Well, it's a TikTok name, but this was all supposed to be anonymous. Nobody was supposed to know what I look like.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right, because you didn't have any of the cameras or anything. So now you are like, oh, this is me. I'm Cheesefilm.
And Hecubus was like, hey, we should film these. And I was like, well, there goes all the anonymity. So it is me. I am Cheesefilm.
Welcome.
This is my beautiful fiance. Once again, on the podcast, our biggest supporter.
Here to talk about movies that I like.
Here to talk about movies. Not that you like all movies, but to talk about a movie that I was introduced because of you.
Right.
A movie that apparently our generation claims as the best version of this story.
Yes. And
heralds in a new wave for the studio. This was the studio's first with its new, I don't want to say showrunner, but it was its first director, producer, lead after the original had passed. This, of course, being our Christmas episode, would be The Muppets Christmas Carol.
The Muppets Christmas Carol, which is the best adaptation of the Christmas Carol, objectively, having watched pretty much every one there is to date. In my humble opinion, this is not only the best adaptation in terms of entertainment value, but also the best adaptation in terms of just storytelling and not taking too much away from the story itself.
I would say it's the second closest adaptation to the original novel. And it was only beaten out by the Zemeckis one.
Okay.
Robert Zemeckis' Jim Carrey starring Christmas Carol, I think, is a little bit more accurate to the book than this one is.
Right.
I mean, the book's not a musical.
Right.
And isn't populated by frogs and pigs.
Right.
But the dialogue is the book.
Right.
And how it goes is the book. So that being said, The Muppets Christmas Carol, for at least our generation, a lot of people like the Alistair Sim one from the way back era. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people like the, I think it's George C. Scott is the other one.
Yeah, there's also a lot of love for the Mickey's Christmas Carol. The Disney adaptation of it. I personally am not as big of a fan of that as I am of the Muppets, but maybe that's just because Charles Dickens is in this one.
He is. He is in this one. And like you said, we watched a lot of these, and this one, I do agree. I think this is the best way to tell the story. It cuts out some things and it leaves in others, and I think this is the ideal way to tell this story.
Correct.
And I think everybody in it is doing a great job.
Right. And I mean, I know it's a little bit more of a serious story. So I know that they take a more whimsical and funny and humorous spin on it.
They do.
But they still include parts that are scary and that are... They don't hold back on the Ghost of Christmas Future. They don't really hold back on the way that they treat Scrooge and things like that. So I think there's a lot of positives to it too, where they might insert humor, but there's still some parts that are serious as a heart attack.
Very serious, yeah. So we start off the show with Gonzo and Rizzo the Rat, and they are welcoming us as if it was a play. He's like, welcome to the Muppets Christmas Carol.
Selling apples.
Which I like. I like how it feels like it's a production, because later on, a lot of the sets are sound sets, but they're done in a way that's kind of old Hollywood-esque. Mm-hmm. And so to have the preface of we're putting on a show, I think is a great strength for this.
I agree.
Gonzo plays Charles Dickens.
Yes. And Rizzo plays himself.
And they introduce a story. They're like, we're going to do the Christmas Carol. And I'm going to be the narrator. I'm going to walk you through this whole thing. Mm-hmm. And we have our first opening number, which is
all about how mean Scrooge is.
And there are comments on how this song kind of makes Scrooge feel like he's a dastardly villain, like a criminal.
Right.
But he's not. He's not.
He's
and
doing
I
everything by
like
the
how
book.
he's a law-abiding citizen. He's a moneylender, and people owe him money. So he's obviously going to be viewed as a bad guy, on top of the fact that he is
Just kind of
a stingy jerk. Yeah. He's a very unlikable person. And Michael Caine does a fantastic job playing
of
Scrooge.
making him a very unlikable person. I remember reading once that most Muppet movies, when they make them and they have the cameos with the real people, they, like, hey, it's a Muppet movie, like, have a lot of fun, everything's gonna be, like, lighthearted and funny. And Michael Caine said, no, I'm going to play this as serious as physically possible.
Now, I wonder if, because this was Brian's first outing as, helming the Muppets, I wonder if he wanted it to be a little bit more serious. Like, look, I can make a good movie too. Because the first Muppet movie, while full of cameos, is about following your dreams and, like, not letting somebody take that from you,
Right.
It's a road to movie, really about following your heart,
right.
So having, to fill your dad's shoes.
I was like, big shoes to fill.
I think this is a great magnum opus for him, because he does. Like, if you didn't know this was somebody else, you probably would be like, oh, Jim Henson didn't direct that one.
Right.
I didn't know that, because he does a good job. So to have Michael Caine take it seriously, because I believe the one that came out just before this one was the Treasure Island.
Maybe.
I don't remember which one was Henson's last one. But that one had not Jim Carrey.
Tim Curry.
Very
close, very close.
And he's a villain. He's a very serious villain. But he is Tim Curry
playing it like a Muppet,
hamming it up. Yeah,
playing it like a Muppet.
He's a Muppet villain.
That's one of my favorite things I read. It's that Tim Curry played his Muppets movie like he was a fellow Muppet, and Michael Caine played his movie like all
the Muppets were fellow actors.
All the Muppets were his fellow actors, and it ended up working.
Yeah,
perfectly.
And like, it's fun to compare and contrast them, but those two I would say are perfect examples of what you just said.
Right.
Like of your main human actor adapting
to the role.
Yeah.
Of being surrounded by puppets. Yes.
But yeah, so we are introduced to Michael Caine. Michael Caine is Scrooge. Everybody sings about how they hate him and how he hates him. And we get to his it's called something, Marley's.
What is the money lending place?
Yeah.
Yeah. They like scratch out the Marley's one. I don't remember what the name.
I can't remember the name of the business is.
But
it's his loan sharking operation.
Right. And in this one, I think what's also fun is usually in most of the Christmas carols, there's only one other loan person, and it's Bob Cratchit. But this one, they have Bob Cratchit and the rest of the bookkeepers, and it's all like other rats. And they're all tired, they're all cold, they're all miserable. Everybody's having like the worst time ever.
Yeah.
And they ham it up a lot. So like, yes, Kermit does a great job of being Bob Cratchit specifically, but in order to kind of relieve Bob Cratchit's burden of being the like, it's Christmas and everything's very, I'm gonna ham it up being sad. Like they make the rats do that.
Well, because Kermit is a beloved character,
right?
And Scrooge is hard on him, and Kermit's not joking. Like, and this is like, we've talked about this. Like, this movie isn't full of jokes, quips, and funny moments.
Right.
Like, there isn't a single thing Kermit says where it's like, he doesn't do that.
Right.
He's just playing.
He's just Bob Cratchit.
Yeah.
And so
the mice or the rats being there to do all like the
quips and the jokes and the little like, this is my island and the sun, like trying to kind of comedically relieve the very tense situation.
Because it's tense. So because Scrooge comes in, it's already dark. There's no lights on. It feels cold and I love this. The outside world is foggy.
Right.
But there's some lights. There's people together. You get in there, there's no lights at all. It's very what would feel like just raw footage, like it's
Gray
blues and grays, and everybody is distanced.
Mhm.
They're not
They're at desks like a classroom where like everybody's far apart. There's no one huddling together
at all. So it feels cold, lonely, and depressing to really sell the point that it's a cold, lonely, depressing business
Right.
full of cold, lonely, depressing people.
Right.
And he's kind of a jerk right off the bat to Bob Cratchit. And I believe
So they come in order. Are you talking about the three people that come in?
Yeah.
So comes in order. It starts with Fred.
Fred's first.
Fred comes in, gives him a wreath, and is basically like, "Merry Christmas, Uncle. It's good to see you. Are you going to come have dinner with me and Clara?" And Scrooge is a butthole and says, like, "No. How dare you get married? Like, that's the worst decision you've ever made. And Merry Christmas is lame. And that's when you get your first bah. No.
Humbug.
He humbugs before that. No, he humbugs before that. I think he humbugs, like, before he even goes in the building. Because he turns around after his song. And everybody, like, disperses after they, like, are sitting there just, like, bashing him behind his back. And he humbugs the first time. The first thing he says in the movie is humbug.
Humbug.
Yeah.
But he says that, I would count that as part of the song.
Okay.
Because that's Scrooge. It's the Scrooge song.
But point being is he humbugs before Fred does. But he also humbugs Fred.
Right.
You know, and Fred's sick of that. So Fred's like, okay. But he stays long enough because the second people come and it's Beaker and Honeydew. Honeydew is his name. And they are coming to ask for a donation.
Yes.
As part of the story. And Fred stays long enough to kind of convince them that, you know, oh, Mr. Scrooge will 100% give you some money. And then he dips.
Now, and Scrooge kind of brings up a point here, is that he's paying taxes, and his taxes are going to poorhouses and prisons,
right,
which do home people of low income and homeless people.
Right.
It sucks. Like,
but
and they're just looking for extra for the holidays.
Well, and it's for charity. It's charity. It's literally to be
charitable. Yeah. But I mean, he's got a point. Like, he's already doing his part.
Okay.
You know, and that sucks. But like, you can't get him on that.
Yeah, but it's also Christmas. Like, be a nice, generous, charitable person.
Right.
Don't be a butt crack. And that's what it boils down to.
But he puts that nail. He places the nail, and he hits it once, and he says, "But these people will die, Mr. Scrooge." And he's like, "They better do it
to decrease the surplus population,"
which is a cold line.
Starting to just starting to go down the path of ensuring his demise as a good person.
Yeah,
it's to make sure that he is
unredeemable,
unredeemable before these ghosts come.
Yeah.
So that might have been, like you said, one of the final nails in his coffin.
What's the start of it?
Yeah, he's on his last nail when he gets visited by the Marley.
Because that's his last chance. Like, look, if you don't turn this around right now, it's done for you. You're basically going to hell. Yeah. Because when the Marleys show up covered in chains, and like in the Jim Carrey one, when he looks out the window and it's just a sea of misery. Yep. Like, that's not.
Yeah. Terrible. No, thank you. But yeah, so you get Fred, you get the charity donation people, and then after all of that, you get that poor kid caroling, like, who he opens the door. Penny for the song, Governor? And he closes the door in his face, sees his wreath, opens the door back up, and hits the kid with the wreath.
Is it their little rabbit? Mm-hmm. The puppeteers. That's an inside joke. They
hate that rabbit.
Hate rabbit. They any opportunity they can, they go overly mean to that rabbit
specifically. I don't know what the reasoning is. Maybe he's hard to puppeteer. Maybe he's just a pain.
Somebody wanted a new character, or they had it in because he's been around for a while,
right?
And like they kind of forced it in there.
Okay.
So as a way to like get back
at that, they were like,
because he doesn't look like any of the other Muppets either. He's just a rabbit.
He's a very specific looking Muppet. Yeah. But it's similarly to like the Ghost of Christmas Past, where it's just like a whole new weird situation. Okay, look, she's scary. She's very scary. We'll get there. Because the way that she's puppeted is wild.
Yeah. I would imagine it kind of looks like a marionette.
Yeah. No, she. We'll get there.
Okay.
So after all the people come to Scrooge, then it becomes, hey, Christmas is tomorrow. can we have the day off?
Right.
And it was very awkward, very tense. Rats broke it up a little bit by, no, it was the frog's idea, like, to be off tomorrow. Like, trying to comedically relieve the very, like tense, uncomfortable situation. And finally, he was like, take the day off. Seeing as I'm the only one that views it as a way to pick a man's pocket.
And that's another thing. Like, Cratchit brought up a good point. That most other businesses aren't going to be open.
There's no one to do business with.
You'd be wasting your time. So maybe it's just a good idea not to be open tomorrow. He's chewing on that. And he's like, well, it's customary to have the day. And he's like, all right, well, that's the kind of the custom norm.
Right.
And if I'm the only one who doesn't care if it's Christmas or not,
then take the day
then just
off.
go.
Right.
Which, I mean, his reasoning is because you're wasting my time.
It's not because I'm trying to be charitable. It's because I don't want to not do business. I don't want to waste coal.
Right.
Is what it boils down to.
Which he doesn't.
Right.
He does not waste a drop of that.
Yeah. He doesn't. Yeah. But yeah.
It ain't a waste. It ain't a waste. That's the point.
True. And then they have their closing up for Christmas because he leaves.
And he goes home to Marley's house.
Yeah. To Marley's house. He owns just everything that the Marleys had. Basically.
Yeah. So was Scrooge living with them before the Marleys died?
I don't know.
Because in every adaptation, he's living in Marley's house.
Yeah, it's like it was bequeathed to him.
And I've never read it.
Maybe he sold a house. He sold his house and went and just lived in their house.
Fully furnished. He's just sleeping in their bed.
He's just sleeping in their house with their bed and their stuff. His clothes, because in the Muppets adaptation, they're small. they're little dudes. There's also two of them in the Muppets adaptation because in every other adaptation, it's one Marley.
Oh, yeah, it's Jacob Marley.
And so
where did Robert come from?
You know why?
Why?
It's a nod to Bob Marley. Robert Marley.
Wow. That's funny.
Yeah. So Jacob and Robert Marley, but they never say Bob.
It's great that they don't. That's so clever. See, that's the people, they don't give them credit, man.
Yeah, and that's part of it's part of the joke. You know what I mean? The long running, like there are jokes that are in there back and forth. There's also a lot of shops and signs that are like important in the background of different scenes and things like that are all just very like kind of Easter eggy. In one of the scenes, I don't remember what scene it is, but they pass it's like the Grape Pub is what it's called. And it's the oldest pub in all of England, basically opened in 1583. And people like Charles Dickens went there and they have it in the background of the Muppets movies and stuff. They have a Statler and Waldorf's like business.
In London?
No, like in the movie.
Well,
maybe
that's what I was thinking of.
It's not Marley
and
Marley. It's Statler and Waldorf's
on the sign.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Because in the Ghost of Christmas Present, when he's walking through the street, you can see it.
Yes, they're all little like nods to other characters, nods to other stuff, things like that. Anyway, he goes back to the Marley's house.
And he sees a terrible fright.
He sees a terrible fright on the doorknob.
Which I love.
Becomes
the door knocker.
Yes.
Scrooge!
Yes.
Oh, it's so good.
Horse jumps, scary situation.
Lightning crashes.
Scares all the kids.
dead rise.
Yeah, 100%. And then, of course, he's startled, goes inside. Very, very similar to the adaptation, or to the original story, to the original source material, minus Gonzo and Rizzo climbing his house.
They want to see what's going on.
I know, but I don't think Charles Dickens climbed the house, So that's
Charles Dickens, a real guy, never climbed
his own, never climbed,
Scrooge, the fake character's house.
So they're trying to figure out what's going on in there and climbing the house. So that's the comedic relief to the like very tense inside.
Well, and they're also describing what's going on. So he's like, Scrooge entered his cold house.
Yeah, no. Well, that's because he's omniscent. But he is the storyteller.
Right. So that's why they're there.
Right, and he needs to prove it to Rizzo.
Well, he doesn't.
Because Rizzo doesn't believe him, Mr. What is it? Hoity-toity, Mr. Godlike Smarty Pants.
I told you, I'm omniscient.
But that provides the comic relief to the tense situation on the inside of the house, which is where everything's dark. He beats up his own coat because he's afraid.
Oh.
It's dark and scary, and he's got just a candle. And
Gonzo points out that like he said that Scrooge was forced to light the candles.
Yeah.
Which means he doesn't do that.
Yeah, Scrooge was forced to light his lamps. So he was, in order to, what is it, to conduct a proper search.
Right. Because he thinks somebody might be in his house.
Yeah, because he was scared. And then you get dinner.
He's eating his dinner.
And then you get.
By the fireplace. And man, I believe, and I'm going to say this on purpose, not to sound like some pretentious music nerd, but like, I want to say it's a cello that they play.
Could.
Scrooge's theme on the ba-na-na-na, that thing.
Yeah.
And it's alone. It's a lone cello.
Yeah.
And it's a wide shot of Scrooge with his plate in the fireplace and nothing but darkness.
Yep.
A void of nothing. Just emptiness.
I think it's a violin, but I know what you're talking about.
It's too deep for a violin.
You think?
Like it's bassy.
Okay. It might be a cello. You might be right.
But
yes, like just very dark rooms, like obviously furniture that like he either he brought in for himself or that was already there.
I want to say he might be living with the Marleys. Like, I don't know if it was customary at that time. Like, if all you ever did was business with these people,
to live with them,
just live with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think
because you got servants there.
Yeah, personally, I would say they died, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna save money this way
and take care of them until they die." Yeah, he took care of them.
Move into their house, sell my own home. I'm not married. I don't have any ties to anyone else. I can just move in.
Well, because it would make sense. Because if you think about it, because in the novel, he's got a housekeeper and like a chef or a butler person. So if the Marleys owned that, if Jacob Marley owned that house and was getting sick to the point of death, it would be more cost effective
for Scrooge
to live there and take care of him for free,
right?
Than it would be to go to a home and have somebody else do it for more money.
That's true. That's very true. That's a good point.
You know, so it's probably just a circumstance thing,
right? And that's super possible. But point being, then he's sitting there eating his cheese and bread and the worst meal I've ever seen that looks like it's just miserable with his silly little nightcap.
And the bell starts
ringing. And the bell starts ringing.
Ding, 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 ding.
Starts a little bit, kind of startles him. Okay, that was weird. Goes back to his food. Starts again. Intensely.
You know what that bell is, right?
Isn't that the servant bell or the he's getting called bell or like the doorbell?
Yeah.
Yeah. Something to call him downstairs because it's upstairs. Yeah. And then they pop in from the stairwell. Like literally jump up from hell to come up and say hi, and proceed to play what I can only describe as the best and creepiest song.
Oh, it's so great
in that entire movie. That is one of the best songs in the movie, and it's scary. And he does a good job at making both the audience and Scrooge be like, "Oh, this is serious. Like this is a big deal. Like this is scary." Like I'm covered.
They don't even care.
Yeah.
They're like, look, you're gonna be visited by 3 ghosts. Buckle up.
and they're covered in chains. The chain boxes talk, and when the chain boxes talk, it's always something terrible.
Doomed.
Yeah.
You're doomed for all time.
Yeah, awful. And they do an excellent job of scaring the bejesus out of him.
Uh-huh.
And once they've scared the bejesus out of him, they're like, "Cool, this is gonna happen 3 more times. Good luck." Can I meet them all at once and just get it over with? It's also a great line.
Well, sorry, I think that's the line. That's what he says.
Yeah. Well, can I meet them all at once and get it over? And they ignore him. They're like, "No. When the bell tolls 1, you're getting met."
I also like, and I'm pointing this out too, that he speaks in Old English. Like, there's no updating it. He literally says stuff like, like a good night's rest is the whatever. You know what I mean?
Very, very
old timey.
Yeah, old timey. Yeah.
That's why he says humbug. You know?
Right.
The humbug is like BS.
Yeah.
You know?
Like shut up. Yeah.
Nah, bull. That's kind of what that translates to.
Right.
So when it's like you could be a bit of beef, you can be a little bit of undigested mustard. There's more of gravy of grave than you. Like that's not modern speak.
No.
You know?
It's a sick pun though.
Or like when Bob Crash is like, well, it's customary on like that. All of that, like,
right.
It's of the time, and it feels.
They put you in the time.
Yeah,
for sure. I can agree with that. And
like the next, like Scrooge entered the state of a dreamless night, you know, like.
Well, and they have like the bed chamber with the little bed curtains and stuff like that, like all like very time accurate things.
Yeah.
And then so he went to sleep, and he wakes up, and the scariest Muppet.
It is hard to look at.
This is so scary. So
you're nearly a child.
Yeah, barely.
I can remember over 1,800 years.
I think it's 1,900 years.
You're wrong.
Okay, thanks. But I learned that she is submerged in baby oil with the puppeteers.
A Diddy puppet.
Stop. I hate you. But yeah, so they did like a tube, a vat of baby oil, put the Muppet and the Muppet, like the puppeteers of the Muppet, into this baby oil and filmed it through the baby oil with a green screen behind it to remove any of the stuff that's in it. And actually,
gross.
And about halfway through, they realized that the baby oil was too expensive, so they did water, and it broke the puppet.
Yeah.
And it started like the puppet's glue and the things holding the puppet together did not react well to the water. So they got like the shots they needed, and they were like, "Get this thing out of here."
And it's pretty
ethereal and scary.
Now, good thinking to do something like that. The term I'm thinking of,
innovative.
Innovative.
There you go.
To do something like that. The Henson Company really brings their A game every time.
Right.
Every time.
Right.
But yeah, and it is very ethereal. It's of the three, I think it's pretty. It's the most thing I would say is otherworldly.
It's the most ghost-like, for sure.
Because even Death at the end, he's got exaggerated features. He looks kind of goofy.
Right.
But this, it feels like an angel.
Yeah,
you know.
like a ghost. Yeah, and so she takes him to the past, and they fly.
No, but this is the only shot that I'll point out. I've got a picture of it. It's the only time they use green screen, and it looks like they're using green screen and wires. Is when he's flying over the old town and all that. Like they had to. Like there's no real other way to do it. Right. But like the feathering is not quite good enough to where you can be like, okay, that's what they did.
Right.
But that being the only shot is pretty impressive.
Right.
Because we skipped over a couple things that we'll go back to because we're focusing on the Scrooge story. But the Bob Cratchit stuff, there's stuff I want to talk about there too.
Right.
So we'll loop back around to that. But that I think is the only effect that, like you just said, they filmed it in baby oil, her in baby oil. I didn't know that. You can't tell that.
Yeah.
And they even add like the spectral light behind her to hide any of what I just pointed out with Scrooge. And it's innovative. It's well done. Like you've got to give them props for that.
Right.
And they go back to when Scrooge was just an itty bitty boy.
Yep.
And they're like, here you are. This is where your life started. Alone. And this is why it works, is because Scrooge inherently by nature is not a bad person. He is a victim of the world, and he is making the world his victim.
Right.
Essentially. So they don't really touch on this in the Muppet one, but like the reason why Scrooge was there during Christmas while everybody else went home was because his family never came to get him.
Right. They
sent him to that boarding school, and that is where he stayed.
And they dumped him
until he aged out.
Right.
Like I believe Scrooge's father dies while he's in that school, and he just never.
No one told him. No one cared.
Yeah. I believe his sister ends up like, "Hey, you coming home?" And he's like, "There's nothing to come home to."
Right. That you guys don't love me. You guys don't pay attention to me. But yeah, so he ages out of the school, and he's being apprenticed to a business, and the schoolroom ages and decays, and you get to meet his headmaster, who's hilarious. One of the funniest jokes in the entire movie.
They got Sam the Eagle to play headmaster.
Yes.
Oh my God, such a great character.
Yes.
But before, hang on, because the Ghost of Christmas Past takes him there, and he immediately is like, "Oh, this is where I was. This is like he's getting these childhood memories. He's excited to see his old friends.
Right. Says hi.
It's igniting and retouching him with with happiness
His
because he's void of it now.
Yeah.
And we got a lot more light. We got a lot more color. We got a lot of, and I think this is clever too. There's a lot of camera grain and fuzz on this.
Is there?
Like a tremendous amount. And I've always kind of wondered why. But it's hazy. It's like a memory. It's a dream. You're rewalking because the Ghost of Christmas Present, it's all very clear. It's the present. It's your eyes are wide open. The future, it's all very drab and cold and dark again because you're not there.
Right.
But like if you go back and rewatch it all the way up until Take Me Away From Here, Spirit. It's got a lot of camera grain. It's got a lot of film grain on it. Like to the point where I think, and I don't know this, I'd have to look it up. But as a film enthusiast, I think they added more to it. They purposely
made it look that way.
Grain it.
That makes sense.
Underexposed it or overexposed it.
Yeah.
To the point where like it looks
like
hazy.
Like a memory. Looks like something that you're dreaming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even if they didn't, we're talking about it now.
Right.
Which is amazing.
Right.
Because I oftentimes give filmmakers more credit than I know is good. They're like, well, I don't know if they intended it to be that way.
Right.
But intention or not, if you've got people talking about it,
your camera grain,
then it worked.
Right. 30 years after.
30 years later.
Yeah.
But yes, now back to Sam the Eagle, who is the headmaster.
Yes. So Sam
Scrooge's only point of male
fatherly anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he basically is like, okay, you're going to go apprentice under this company.
Yes, because it's the American way.
Sam.
The British way. That is so
one of the best jokes in the whole film.
Because Sam the Eagle on the Muppets is a very patriotic eagle.
Right. So it makes sense to hear like
the American way.
And
it's like, no, we're in London.
Takes Charles Dickens Gonzo going over and being like, Sam, how's this house?
The British way.
The British way.
Which again makes it feel like it's a production.
Right.
And I appreciate that.
Right. And that's, good comedic relief for a situation that is bleak.
Yeah.
Like you're sending Scrooge off to go apprentice under somebody, and that's not always a positive. And yes, he had good grades and becomes a businessman today, but like
a very good businessman.
A very good businessman. And he gets, apprenticed under Fozziwig, who is a very nice, kind soul. So it's interesting that he's still struggled so much to be
two things. One, when you first go back to the schoolroom, you have a whole bunch of busts of different great writers and novelists, and then they get to Gonzo, who's up on there too, Charles Dickens.
Yes.
And his eyes open up first before he starts speaking.
Yes.
I always saw that as a nod, like, get it? Kind of thing.
You're right.
But then, he apprentices under Fozziwig instead of Fizzywig because he's Fozzie Bear.
Of course.
I don't think Fozziwig was a charitable guy year round.
Could have been.
I think, a bit, blah, 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 blah. Now it's Christmas, let's party.
Well, and I only say that.
We got business.
Right.
But now it's.
Well, but Scrooge makes the point that, like, this is Fozziwig. He was as ruthless as a rose petal. Or he was like as hard and ruthless as a rose petal. Meaning
so then maybe he was kind of a
very
pushover.
Soft, chill dude. And then Christmas time, he was an even softer, chiller dude.
Did he have to be hard if you have a very, very popular thing you're selling?
Rubber chickens.
Like
this is his old rubber chicken factory.
And how he says, how does Michael Caine
not laugh?
Stand there on a set with because the ghost isn't there. They put the ghost in.
Right.
There's a camera on him. There's Fozziwig's old rubber chicken factory. You've got to commend him, man. Like that. So there's a handful that I would say are jokes.
Right.
Like in the actual story, not from outside players.
Right.
The rats in the beginning and that line, like amazing. amazing. And he says it with such enthusiasm.
Yeah, his old rubber, like excited to see,
it again.
to see his rubber chicken factory. And I think it's funny because it's glossed over really fast too. Like he says it and you don't really think about it.
Did he just say rubber chicken factory?
Yeah, like you go inside. It doesn't look like a factory. It just looks like a barn basically. And then you look around and you're like, this dude makes rubber chickens? Like, you know what I mean? Like, wait a minute, hang on, back up. You know, and you just don't really. It's so glossed over because they just walk in. You know what I mean?
And they have this party, you know, and you can see the old lads, Jacob and Robert, up there,
see Jacob
which
and
are
Robert.
weird, seeing with Statler and Waldorf, not as old men. It's weird
because they're both young.
And he meets a girl.
Yes.
And this is where I believe the down happens.
Scrooge's downfall.
Because, you know, Fozzie's like, you know, it's Christmas. Just relax.
Go
have
meet some
fun.
people.
It's not a big deal. And he meets this girl and he wants everything for this woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she just wants to be with him. She just wants to marry him.
And he wants to be rich.
He doesn't want to be rich. He just wants to be comfortable, you know, and not have to worry about it. Because they're right in that time, they were in a recession and he's like, business is poor. I don't want to, I've got nothing to offer you.
Right. And she just wants to be with him.
She just wants to be with him. And this is the drama of stories like this, is that instead of it being like, well, you know, my goats and stuff, it's I don't want you to be financially worse off now because I've got nothing for you.
Right.
My love, I can't take care of you. I can barely take care of myself.
Right.
So it's not that he's trying. You know, he is trying. He doesn't want her to leave. And even though, because, I mean, this song was cut out.
Right.
She walks away.
Right.
It's now or never, Scrooge, and that was it.
Right. And in different adaptations, it's a little different. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen some adaptations where, like, Scrooge is already rich. Scrooge is already making great money, and he's like, business continues to be poor. You know, like I'm just not ready yet. I don't want to spend the money on a wedding. That's what you said. You know, oh well, that's what you said last year and the year before that. And it's so it depends on your level of evilness for Scrooge, basically, because like some people, some adaptations of Scrooge, he's already rich and he's just like, I don't want to spend that money.
Uh-huh.
And then you have this adaptation where he does care about her and he does love her and he does, you know, want to be with her, but she doesn't want to wait on him to be rich first. She just wants to be with him and he wants to make sure that he has something to provide for her.
Right.
And so that's what makes it
works best.
More heartbreaking.
And I don't think you can find a version of this movie that has the song in it naturally.
Oh, yes, you can. It's just the DVD.
Naturally.
The DVD.
That's like the extended edition.
Yeah, the DVD. Well, so did you know they cut out 2 more songs too?
Probably. That wouldn't make...
Yeah, so there were 2 other songs they cut out, but they cut out the one that was in the original cut, so they cut out The Love Is Gone.
Right. So, and that's the one I want to talk about because it's odd, and your brother pointed this out too, because it comes in at the end. They set it up here when Love Is Gone.
Right.
And Scrooge cries. He breaks.
Yeah.
And he begs the spirit to get him out of here.
Get me out of here.
That song should have stayed in there.
I agree.
I mean, sad or whatever it is, it's still a tremendous character moment for Scrooge.
Right. And it has a reprise. So, like...
That's what I'm saying. Like, it comes into play later. And without that song,
doesn't make
the
any
reprise
sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, the reprise is no longer, like, helpful.
So Scrooge comes back. And so what are the other 2 songs?
So there's one song that's sung by Beaker and Honeydew that they cut out
They
completely.
probably cut that out.
And they cut out a song sung by Sam.
The Eagle?
Yeah. There were 2 songs.
Those 2 make sense to cut.
Yeah, they said, no. So they cut that, and they also cut the last verse of the Marley and Marley song.
Right.
Which, you know, it's not, it doesn't take away or add.
Well,
really.
but that's common too. They didn't really cut that out. It's just the movie version.
Well, then they should have cut out a portion of The Love Is Gone and kept just a portion of The Love Is Gone. In my opinion.
Well, they got that motif starts playing again. The Love Is Gone motif. Boom, boom.
But that's my point, is that when you don't have the song, you're just kind of like, oh. then why is this here? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what's the point of this? The love we've found when you have the reprise. Cool. You know what I mean? Like, so I think you're right. I think the movie is better when you keep at least partial to that song in. So that way the reprise then makes sense. But point being, they cut it out. So she just kind of turns and walks away. And he gets so upset that the ghost leaves him alone. And he's back in his bedchamber crying. And by that point, it's almost 2:00, which means it's time for Ghost of Christmas Present.
Yes. So my favorite ghost shows up, and he's like, "Yo, come on, let's have fun. Come know me better, man. You know."
And he doesn't have a good memory because his memory's only
in the present. Yeah.
So he doesn't remember if he said something 5 seconds ago because it's in the past now.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's very smart. I think that's a very good way.
Oh my God, Michael Caine's such a good actor.
Yeah, you did, yes.
Like that, just that you did, yeah.
Over 1,200 of my brothers and sisters have come before me. No, over 1,900 of my brothers and sisters have come before me. Imagine the grocery bills.
Yeah, like, and you got this big jolly guy, and he's expecting something, so he's gonna quip back with him,
right?
Because these are people who are wanting to be in his life,
right?
And he's a little bit raw, so he's a little bit open to this, and he takes him out. And he's like, "Look, Christmas is great, man. Like,
yeah, there's a reason that everybody has fun at Christmas. Yeah. Well, I guess I just never noticed. Well, yeah, you never noticed because you've been a butthole all day,
and
all the time.
Walks around and he shows them all the wonder that it can bring, and they sing this big song, and even Scrooge starts getting into it too.
Yeah, he starts getting into the song. He's smiling at everybody. He didn't know. He even says at the end of the song, like, "I had no idea. Show me family.
More.
Show me show me happy times."
Yeah.
So they have their big song number where everybody's dancing in the square, and
yeah, you want to say it?
Or with the people in the background.
Yeah.
And so because it's a prop town,
a close set,
there's a lot of people that get kind of like stuck and they get a little bit too close to it.
Yeah, if you pay attention to the back actors.
Yes, and there's
people stop walking, people go up to a corner.
Yeah, and there's 2 people specifically that are like a couple and they're like walking away, and you watch them like about halfway through the final part of the song just stop because there's nowhere to go because they hit a wall. And it's like one of my favorite things. But yeah, so after big dance number, getting Scrooge into the Christmas spirit for probably the first time ever, you know what I mean?
Right.
They head to Fred's house. Yes, and Fred just roasts him.
He does. So he goes to family. The family's kind of mean to him. It kind of hurts his feelings. Visibly hurts his feelings.
Yep. He doesn't want to see anymore. He's
like, oh, never mind then. So he takes him to somebody who's appreciative of him.
Mm-hmm.
And we see Tiny Tim
for the first time
being cared by Kermit
on the super sick little Christmas scat, I think is what they called it, where it's like they just do like a little scat number. Shut up.
Yeah, so
on top of a rolling log.
If
you look very closely. So
Kermit is staying in place. The background is being pushed back.
Mm-hmm.
And he's on a log that rolls. So you've got a lot of movement.
Yeah.
On a still frame. And I think that's great.
And I think it's a really cool way to do that.
Now we're talking about Cratchit and Cratchit's story. I believe earlier in the film when Kermit sings his first song.
Yeah, so One More Sleep Till Christmas.
Christmas Day, and he looks up at the stars.
Yes.
And he got a shooting star.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
Nod to Jim Henson.
It's not only a nod to Jim Henson. So in the very first Muppet movie, they captured a shooting star. Kermit looks up and there's a shooting star. In this one, it was I love you, Dad.
Oh, you know what I mean? That's cute.
And in every single Muppet movie since this one,
there's been something.
That's Jim Henson.
Aw.
He puts it in there on purpose for his father.
That's super nice.
It is super nice. It's super sweet. And when Kermit's looking up and he sees Jimmy go by, yeah.
Oh, God. That's cute.
So we see Cratchit in his little modest house with his wife and 3 kids and 4 kids. And it's small, it's quiet, it's not big enough, but yet they still say, well, thank you, Scrooge, because without you, we wouldn't have none of this.
Unless you're Miss Piggy, and then you're hateful.
Well, because she knows he's an ass,
Yeah.
a jerk. And,
Yeah,
and
Miss Piggy is kind
could
of
help him out a little bit more.
Yeah, has no issue being like, yeah, sure, okay, whatever. And then he gets kind of saved by Tiny Tim.
And he sees Tiny Tim, and he's like, "Oh, it's a poor kid." And Bob is pretty loyal, and he's even thanking me when he doesn't need to. What's going to happen to his kid? Tell me there's a...
Yeah, and of course, Ghost of Christmas Present doesn't know, and Ghost of Christmas Present is also aging. I see
a chair in the future.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
And a lonesome crutch.
I don't see much because I am in the present, but if these shadows remain unaltered, then the child will die. So of course now his heart's been hit. He finally got into the Christmas spirit only for it to get hit again.
Right.
So he realizes this. He moves forward. He goes with the Ghost of Christmas Present to
willingly
a graveyard. And so instead of going back into his room like the first ghost left him, the second ghost said, "Nah, he over here. Like, you're gonna have to go to this graveyard." And so they're in a graveyard, and he disappears into sparkles. Go forth and know him better, man. The Ghost of Christmas yet to come. And him scary.
Him a big desk. He's big.
He's very tall. He's got a big open area where his head would be big, like you said, big exaggerated features.
Big,
just
long
a very
arms.
Large puppet.
Yeah.
To the point it's supposed to be scary enough that even like Gonzo and Rizzo are like, "We'll see y'all later."
Right.
Like, we don't want to be a part of this.
And he's shown somebody who's died and people are celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
He's shown that whoever died, all of his stuff is being taken because nobody was there to be left.
Right. And it's basically being considered charity at this point. Like,
right.
they are
the only charitable thing he did was die.
And give and his stuff was taken by people who needed it more than he did.
But then he goes and he sees Cratchit's house, and it's cold. It's quiet.
Yep.
It's terrible.
Yep.
And it hurts. It hurts when they're like, "Yeah, Dad's been walking slow these past couple days."
Evenings. Yeah.
And it hits him. It's like, Scrooge, like, you could have done something. And I think in the Carrie one, it's better when they're in the house and Scrooge is watching and Cratchit comes up and he kind of takes a pause at the stairs, thinking he's alone, but he's face to face with Scrooge, and Scrooge can see tears, the heartbreak.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish they did that in this.
Yeah.
Because it's a powerful moment. It's very powerful.
Right.
And Scrooge begs. He says, "Look, is this set in stone or can I change this?"
And then they head back to the graveyard.
And he's like, "Who was that person? Tell me who that was." And he wipes it off. And he sees it's him. And he's like, "No, please, for the love of God, talk to me. Tell me I can change this."
Right. And he's crying. And it's, I will do better. I will live my life better.
Promise.
I will do anything. And it's just mid tears, like holding on to this initially very scary ghost, like holding on to basically his robe. And when he falls in, it's his bed.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great transition, because I think like it helps to create a sort of like oh yeah, this was a dream.
Like a breath.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, we did it. And the music swells and everything like that. And then he's in his bed.
Yep.
And of course, then he's elated. Everything is better.
And he starts spreading the joy and the cheer.
Yes.
I like when Beaker gives him the scarf.
He gets his first present. He gets his first Christmas gift.
Because it means something to him.
Yeah, that was his first official Christmas gift, I would imagine.
In a long time.
In a long time, if ever.
And he was rude to them.
Mm-hmm.
He was very rude to them. And he's like, "Well, here's something. I'm going to keep this up. There's going to be back payments in this. I owe you. I owe everything."
Right.
Like, "Well, I wish we could do something for you." And it's the smallest act.
It's a scarf.
It's a used scarf.
A Muppet scarf on a grown man.
But it's something he owned, and he's giving it to Scrooge. That's not just like, "Oh, well, here's this."
Right. This is mine, and now it's yours.
Yeah. Like, thank you.
And that borderline means more.
The world to him.
Yeah. Than just going and buying something.
Yeah.
because it was something that person really cared about and wore and loved, and now it's his. And then of course, then he somehow goes shopping on Christmas, even though all the businesses are closed. He buys
all the businesses that owe him money are closed.
Oh, that's very true. But like he goes and buys the turkey, he goes and buys all these presents, and it cracks me up because like that's the only incontinuity that I've noticed.
There's a couple that I let slide.
That I was like, okay, so how did you go buy all these presents if all the businesses are closed?
Yeah.
But I was also like, you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
At the end of the day, it's just because this is our finale. We're wrapping it up.
Right.
You're showing his generosity.
Right.
And he goes to Bob Cratchit's house and he pulls a little prank on him.
And he invites everyone.
The whole city to Bob Cratchit's little tiny den.
Goes to Bob Cratchit's house. But yes, plays the prank on him. Miss Piggy almost... I'm going to raise you right off the pavement is the
Miss Piggy said, I get into a fight every movie.
Dude,
come on.
That was the funniest, another one of the funniest jokes in the whole movie is just like, I'm here to raise your salary. Well, I'm here to raise you right off the pavement. Pardon?
So yeah, the movie wraps up and we play When Love Is Found.
Yes. So doesn't quite click as hard when that other song's been removed because it doesn't reprise very well.
Right. It's just kind of out of the blue.
Right. You're just kind of enjoying a song that never existed.
Yeah. And then you get Gonzo's, the greatest line of the movie, where it's like, and Tiny Tim, who did not die.
That's
Love
true.
that.
Oh, ain't that swell? Or whatever Rizzo says afterwards.
And he's carrying him through this town, and you've got the good ending.
You got the good ending. There's a fun fact about that ending. So if you look closely at the town of people that are singing this song outside of Bob Cratchit's house, Fred's there, but his wife isn't. And Brian Henson got letters from people who were like, why would you make it to where Fred's wife isn't there? Like, why would you make it to where they're getting a divorce?
Huh?
And Brian was like, so she just wasn't available for shooting that day. No.
It's a schedule.
Yeah, no lack of love. Like, he's still very happily married. He just was the only one that could attend the final scene. Like, but I guess I say Clara never made it to the final scene.
So what were your first impressions of this movie when you first saw it?
So I first saw this movie when I was 3, 4. You know what I'm saying? So my first impression of this movie, there are things that are funny. Funny people doing funny things. Like, yeah, I mean, there were parts that were scary. You know what I mean? Like, there were parts that made me like, oh, okay. Always felt that way about The Ghost of Christmas Past. Since I was 4 years old, The Ghost of Christmas Past has freaked me out. So did The Ghost of Christmas Future. Also did a really good job at freaking me out. Excuse me. But my initial thoughts, you know, when you're really, really young are, my goodness, I'm going to cough again. Very, fun people doing fun stuff. You know, fun story. I like the story. As I've grown and as I've really gotten to connect with this movie and gotten to I almost know this movie, you know, because it's a yearly watch for me, if not a multiple times a year.
Yeah, we've watched it 4 times now.
2, 3, first of all. It's just a good movie, okay?
It is.
And because it's such a regular watch, you start to really get to know this movie on like an intimate level. Like, you just start to really enjoy it. And so as an adult, my impressions of this movie are, it's a very good adaptation. It's got just enough humor peppered throughout it to make it to where it's not this very intense story. It can be very intense. There are a lot of very intense scenes, but my initial impression now is I'm glad that there's some comedy sort of peppered throughout it. And some of it's perfectly timed. You know, like, we never brought up the, you could fit through those bars. That was also
You're an idiot.
like,
Love it. I love Gonzo.
And there's just some perfectly timed, like, oh, safe at last. And then the cat, like,
right.
Oh no.
Yeah,
like,
there's humor in it throughout. But even like without talking about a lot of it, I don't feel like you're missing anything.
Right.
Because the story's done so well.
Right.
That it's
you have the two,
it's just icing on a nice cake.
Right. You have the two storylines. You have the storyline of literally Scrooge's experience.
Right.
And then you have Gonzo and Rizzo trying to figure out how they're going to be a part of Scrooge's experience. Yes. That's like, you get the two sides to the story. You get the comedic side and then the more serious side. And I think that helps to kind of alleviate the tension while also making it interesting for kids and funny. You know, because I think if you had just told it from like Scrooge's side, even the jokes that are in Scrooge's side of the story, not quite not always kid friendly. You know what I mean? Things that like you and I would find kind of funny, a kid might not. So like imagine the grocery bills would be hilarious to you and I, lame to a kid.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you got to have the things that also interest the child into that as well. But I mean, it's one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time. It might be my favorite Christmas movie of all time.
It's great.
And I genuinely I know you asked for my impression, but like genuinely, I just like it. It's just a good movie.
So you'd rate it 2 thumbs up?
Oh, 100%.
2 thumbs up.
100%. It's just a good stinking movie.
Absolutely. I loved it too. My first impression was very similar. I did not watch it at 3. I watched it at 22. So
because of me.
Yep. So I had a different experience with it, and I enjoyed it as an adult. I got to experience this as an adult. It was nice. It was I'm glad that I watched it because it's become a staple in our household.
And what's your impression of it?
I just got done with it.
Oh, that it's good. That it's good. That it's good. That's all. That's it.
And then I'm glad that it's a staple of our house. What I just said.
All right. I'm just making sure.
I think it's great. I think it's great. But we are running out of time.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Because my thing only records for an hour, and we're about there.
Okay. Perfect.
So from the Grindhouse to you at home, we want to wish you
a Merry
Christmas
and a Happy Holiday.
We're not woke. I'm just kidding. Happy holidays.
Not everybody celebrates Christmas.
Not everybody celebrates Christmas. Not everybody celebrates anything. So happy holidays.
So happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
And we'll see you in the new year.
Well, this will be.
Oh, in the new year?
No, I will put this out probably on Christmas Day.
Okay.
But we'll reconvene next week for the season 3 finale.
Which is about New Year's?
Which will be the weekend after New Year's Eve. And it'll be a retrospective of everything we've gotten so far.
That's awesome. So I reiterate, we'll see you in the new year.
Well, yeah, because we're recording this early. So we'll see you next year.
We'll see you in 2025.
Thank you. Thank you for everything. It's been a great journey. With love, peace, and respect. Happy holidays from the Grindhouse Podcast. Cheesefilm out.